You're watching the SCAC Spring Media Days. Today we're taking a look into the Southwestern University men's and women's track and field programs. The Pirates will be led heading into the season by head coach Andrew Diehl, along with junior Josh M. of the men's program and junior Mallory Harkins on the women's side. The women, of course, coming off a fourth-place finish at the SCAC Track and Field Championships a season ago. The men, a fourth-place finish as well. Coach, Josh, Mallory, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Coach, I'll start with you. You head into your second season as the head coach of these two programs. Last year, you spoke about the easy transition and how lucky you were to kind of take on the responsibilities of being a head coach, but there's nothing like quite, live bullets. Your first year on the job, what did you learn last season, and what will help you and the rest of and both of these programs as you head into this second year as the leader of these two teams?
Yeah, well, I made it through the first year, so I guess I did dodge all the bullets. But headed into the second year, we've got a lot of fresh faces, a lot of first years, and they help add some depth. They help add some talent that we were a little short on last year, and kind of help shore up some of the holes that we had at the conference championships, as far as areas we didn't really score a lot of points or different things like that, or areas that we think we can score more points in. So it's been exciting. We're coming off a great cross-country season on the men's side, so all the guys are in shape, which is nice, coming back from winter break, and kind of kept the momentum rolling from that. And Josh in particular, coming off of a really, really good season in cross-country and continuing, ran a really good race, half marathon. And so seeing the guys and where they're at in the first years and the work that they put in over winter breaks is pretty exciting. And then on the ladies' side as well, we're dealing with the most depth in the sprints that we've dealt with in my time here at Southwestern. So that really helps shore some things up as far as relays and just trying to be more competitive in the open races. So all in all, it's trending in the right direction. My hair's not getting any blacker, getting a few more gray hairs from the group, so they're still keeping me on my toes. But yeah.
Mallory, for you come into this 2019 track and field season coming off a successful fall season out on the soccer field. Speak to that transition that you make from being a part of the women's soccer program in the fall to now joining up with your track and field teammates. Is there a mindset, a shift that you have to make going into the track and field year?
Absolutely. I mean, for the soccer team, it's all 11 on the field at once, and not one person can compete by themselves. So it's very different coming from having to rely on your teammates every practice and every single game to going to a track season where it's you against everybody. But there's still that team aspect. It's great to still have teammates that push you every day to be your best, just like out on the soccer field. But absolutely, it's different. But I love it. I love my track teammates. I always love coming back and hanging out with them this semester. But there's always similarities and there's some differences. So it wasn't that too hard of a transition.
Josh, for you, similar to Mallory, you're coming off a successful fall season as well, except, out on the cross-country course. As a distance guy and really not having any off-season and putting in the miles throughout the course of the fall, and then you transition now into track and field, what is key for you to make sure your legs are prepared and ready to go to start this spring season and avoid any fatigue or nagging injuries that could occur, by being a cross-country athlete and then into the distance track scene?
So for that question, I would say that as like a distance, I think as any athlete, you kind of learn more about yourself and what your capabilities and limits are, and just over time with experience, how to deal with, nagging pains and the correct protocols for that, how to motivate yourself and just stay fit and always running, not to burn out too much. So for me, for example, like I learned how important rolling out muscle knots are, and so I always got into this habit of always rolling my legs and stretching after I run and eating well after I run. And when it comes to motivation, we all love to run and everything. And so putting in the winter miles is work too, but it's also something that we enjoy to do. So yes.
Coach, you spoke about depth being, starting to become hopefully what you see as a strength with this team. You add 7 freshmen on both the men's and women's side. A big group like that, it brings its unique challenges, but also brings its own unique energy to a team. Speak to these freshmen. How are they transitioning into your program, and what have you seen from them that gives you confidence?
Yeah, just from the get-go, our freshmen, it changes the day-to-day practice. The ladies and the guys still getting comfortable with each other, seeing where each other's at. The little competitions during workout reps of upperclassmen saying, I've done this for a little bit longer, and the freshmen trying to make some noise or prove themselves a little bit. On cross country, we were blessed on the men's side that we have very good senior leadership to help the first year's transition. On the ladies' side, we have more first-year ladies, but a few of them were still waiting to come out. A couple compete in basketball and some different things like that. So, just still kind of learning each other. But we have 2 freshman ladies that I anticipate competing for spots on our 4x1 and our 4x4. We have another first year named Kiamber McCracken that I anticipate she'll be going to score some conference points in the 400-meter hurdles and being a crucial leg on our 4x4. We have Jalen Stewart in the throws on the ladies' side that I anticipate she'll be competing for all conference positions and hopefully all of the throws. And so, that adds, on our women's side in particular, every single thrower we have on our roster right now that's a returner currently holds a school record. And I anticipate Jalen coming in and challenging some of those once we get to our first competition. On the men's side, we're fortunate to have a couple good short sprinters come in and really help shore up our men's 4x1 and our men's 4x4, but also, on the distance side, Nathan Botros, CP Shawless, Doug Ginsberg, all had great cross-country seasons, and seeing them continue to grow, and specifically for somebody like Nathan Botros, who's more of a half-mile or 1,500-meter runner, it's kind of his season, for being on the track is really his focus, and so seeing what he can accomplish and what we're trying to do as a team, and just pretty exciting, but also getting them to gel with the returners is a big piece of what we do every year as coaches. There's always going to be new faces, and we got to make them get along and work out well together during practice.
Coach, you've talked about one of the things that I've noticed looking back at last year. You talk about some of the people that are going to be joining the team this year is really embracing athletes from other sports to be a part of this program. I think with track and field, that can be such an advantage. How do you kind of blend together, coming together with a group, a track and field team when you're having some, like Mallory coming from the soccer team, some basketball team, somebody from the football team, being able to build that depth with your program, embracing that, but then what are the challenges maybe that you face as a head coach to try and get everyone on the same page?
Sure. I'm sure you've heard plenty of commentators say about football players or women's soccer players or men's soccer players, the term track speed. I would put the fastest person in any professional league up against Usain Bolt, and I'd take Usain Bolt every time. But it's also a different level of fitness that we require. Mallory can attest. The level of running, the intensity of the running that we do is a lot different than what they do in soccer, and it's obviously more indicative of our sport. So the biggest transition is for our football players. And women's soccer players, our women's basketball players, our men's basketball players that come out, is getting them in track shape. Obviously their fitness level's high. They're, coming off of their seasons. But, Mike May, who's a men's basketball player, who's a thrower for us, hasn't touched a discus since last year or that sort of stuff. So, shaking off the rust, it's more about fine-tuning than it is about starting with a blank slate. So helping them with the adjustments, but also bringing them into an environment where we're having realistic conversations of like, hey, be realistic. You're coming right off basketball season. Are you going to be in track shape yet? Think back to high school when you would do the same double and where you were at and that sort of stuff, and keep things in perspective that track, we started training for 4 weeks in the fall. And, you know, Mal, you're probably in great fitness shape, so you're going to be doing better later on in our repeat 200s. But the speed aspect, like, we just got to get you there because you haven't used those muscles, or you haven't had a lot of back-to-back bursts of speed, which on soccer is probably more about quickness and breakaways. But, you know, doing that with the burst and the intensity that we need, it's just getting them, you know, fine-tuning their fitness to equate to what we need on the track.
Mallory, getting back to you, you spoke earlier about, I think, something that you embrace in terms of that individual efforts when it comes to track and field, maybe being a little bit different from soccer. Is that something you really embrace? How much do you enjoy going out there and competing as an individual, lining up on the line that ultimately funnels into the team goal of this track and field program?
Yeah, so it's really different for me because my entire life I've played team sports. I've never ran track before until last year. So it's very different, but again, the team aspect, it's every rep I run, every rep I finish, every day right before practice, it's everybody's like, here we go guys, we got it, let's finish, last rep, you got it, you're doing great. So it's still the team aspect. I think, like, yes, every event is individual, I mean, and the relays, but in the end, we're trying to win a conference championship. It's my success is highlighted by everybody else's success. So it is still a team sport, but yes, individually, it's a little bit harder for me to motivate myself sometimes. But it's the team that ultimately holds me together, encourages me every day, and that's what makes me love my sport, soccer and track.
Josh, for you, do you embrace the track and field mentality? I think what I mean by that is you come from cross-country season where, you know, time is important, but it's mostly about beating the man in front of you. Whereas then in track and field, I mean, you know, every lap, you know, every second, it's about, you know, PRing and hitting different times. Is that something that you have to make an adjustment to coming from the cross-country season, and is that something that you also embrace as well?
So the answer to that, as a lot of people know and Coach Diehl know, is that adjustment is very, very easy for me to make because I am always on the mentality of making sure I hit my splits and making sure I'm running on pace, looking at my watch, which is like obsessively, which is not as necessary in cross country, but that's something that I like to do all the time. So when I come to track, it's like, oh, I get to do this and embrace it more. So.
Mallory, for you and Josh, both of you, what are some individual goals that two of you have this season as you look ahead to this 2019 year that you hope to both accomplish out there on the track? And
an individual goal for me is to not hold anything back. Last season, I was kind of just getting into it, and I told myself before every race, I was like, I'm not going to hold anything back. I'm going to be hitting the middle stretch of the 400, and I'm going to give it all I got. But this year, like, I know what it feels like. I know it's going to hurt, but for me, I have to know that after every race, every open race and every relay, that I gave it my 100%. And not only in meets, but also in practice, because every bit in practice will help us in meets as well.
So for me, it's kind of very similar to Mallory's. I just want to be like a better racer and try to be just overall, like, in a race, having more confidence so I can be more competitive and to make the big moves that are sometimes necessary. Like, I a lot of times hear that, like, you know, racing is all about training, but it's also very psychological too. And what you put into practice, what you put in practice, you want to see the results too. And so it's very unfair to you and to other people if you have great workouts but you can't perform to that ability in races, and that's what I want to start really trying to focus on this season.
And for me and Josh, I think too, it's both trying to motivate not only ourselves but our teammates. I also just want to be a better teammate, encourage my teammates every day, even Josh, who I don't run with in practice, but encouraging them and getting closer with the men's cross-country team and even the men's sprinters is trying to be a better teammate, because every little effort we put in will lead to our success in conference and the bigger picture.
Coach, getting back to you, I think one of the cool things about a track and field season is the season is long and there's sort of a process to it. You know, it's different from team sports where you have a win-loss record. You sort of have the ability to get better every single meet and ultimately put it all on the line during championship season. How do you kind of view that as a head coach in terms of the process of the season and having patience and instilling that patience in your runners when maybe at the beginning of the season they're not hitting the times they want to, but then, you know, allowing them to get better and understand that they can get better and those times can be important at the end of the year?
Yeah, I'm going to steal a quote here from Joel Embiid, trust the process. But it's one of those things that, we got to talk about how we're feeling and realistic goals for each meet, right? Like our first meet, we got to talk about, hey, what do you want to accomplish? And for somebody that's like, hey, I want a PR, and that's great, but also realize, like, if you don't, that's not necessarily the end of the world. That's not a loss. That's not a setback. Let's keep moving forward and get better every day. Kind of our team mantra, we got these wristbands here, is to get better every day, brick by brick. So trying to instill the mentality, especially with a track runner, where, the PR is something that we're always chasing. The personal record, the school record, whatever it might be, you're always chasing something. And whereas, other sports like basketball or soccer, there's a little more fluidity in what defines a great game. But trying to keep it in perspective of, hey, what did you run your first race in high school season, not your best time ever, and trying to make that distinction and matching up week by week where we were the previous year. So our first meet last year, Mallory, what did you run? And trying to talk about, oh, okay, great. We're 2 seconds ahead in the 400 of where we were your first race last year. And different things like that. So trying to keep it in perspective of where we were and just the building blocks of the season. Right now we talk about we're laying the foundation, these next, coming off our first training phase, training cycle, going into a recovery week next week and heading into our second phase. It's, this kind of sets the tone for the rest of the year. This is the majority of our work. Yeah, we're still going to do hard workouts. We're still going to move forward, but, we're trying to run the fastest, perform the best April 26th and 27th of the SCAC championships and putting our best foot forward there. And making sure that we peak at the right time and that we're working hard when we need to work hard and we're recovering when we need to recover. So perspective and growth from year to year is how we keep it. But you're right, it's very hard to overcome. Everybody's got their PR in mind and tries to chase it every weekend. So
to wrap things up with Josh and Mallory, for the two of you, you speak to some of the goals that you guys have as a team. We talked about your individual, marks that you're hoping to look for this year. But when you've had those discussions with your teammates, what have some of those goals looked like for this 2019 season?
Well, I guess team goals is we, kind of obviously, but we all just want to see, if we can all see, improvement across all fields and, having smaller, we have, of course, our big goal of conference, but we should have, smaller stepwise goals to accomplish before then, and as a collective team for all the fields, just together, we accomplish those steps together. That's what I want to see as a team. So.
Yeah, and I think, even just improving generally over the season is, I think, what everybody wants. But of course, going for a higher place in conference, but also I think for almost all of us on the team, it's being proud of the efforts we put in and being confident in ourselves going into every meet, especially the conference meet in April, knowing that the work that we put in now is going to help us and benefit us so much in April. So I think it's just staying steadfast every single day, even when the workouts get hard, the reps get tough, but being confident and being proud of ourselves to reach our end goal of being a second faster, 2 seconds faster, being a place higher at the conference tournament.
And finally, Coach, to wrap things up with you, when you for the fans and family and friends that come out and watch your track and field programs this season, what can they really expect to hang their hat on as far as, despite the results, whatever happens on the track, that you really hope this team certainly has, certain characteristics, certain identity? What do you look for that? What can they expect with these groups?
Number one's effort. That every time we step on the track, that everybody's giving their best effort. I would say number two is that our team, men's, women's, distance, field events, sprinters, whatever you want it to be, are very supportive of each other, that we're cheering for everybody. When Josh is running a 10K, that we're making sure we're giving him some love and supporting him through it, especially when it gets tough. Same thing, seeing Josh cheer on Mallory in a 400 or other teammates, that it's not just our men's and women's team or just our sprinters cheering on sprinters. It's our program cheering on other members of the program, and you know, also the way that we conduct ourselves. You know, I expect that we hold ourselves in a very high regard and that we're always respectful of our competitors. You know, and at the end of a race, telling people good race and, you know, things like that. That's what I would say our fans can definitely count on from us is high character and effort.
Southwestern University men's and women's track and field programs. The Pirates will be led heading into the season by head coach Andrew Diehl, along with junior Josh M. of the men's program and junior Mallory Harkins on the women's side.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.